Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of NC-17. Today we are blessed to have with us actress and, in my opinion, screen queen, Sasha Graham. How are you doing today?
Hey Josh, good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Uh, I want to thank you again for coming on. Uh, it's an honor.
Thank you.
But yeah, if you want to give a little bit of backstory of how you got into film and like your love of horror and just everything in general, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Way back when in the 80s, I moved to New York City to be an actor. And I, at that time, was obsessed with, I loved all entertainment, but I really loved horror movies. I really loved vampires. And then so unsurprisingly, when I started going out and auditioning for things, I would always get cast in the horror stuff. I my first like big role was playing a vampire in live vampire theater, like all around the city. So I think, as is often the case, you just kind of fall into what it is you're already interested in, right? Because that shines through your work. Yeah. So, and then I think in 1995, 4 or 5, I auditioned for Kevin Lindenmuth's Addicted to Murder, and then that was it. After I did that movie and it went into Blockbuster and I was on the cover, then I just started doing like crazy indie horror movies all over the city and kind of the tri-state. Yeah, that's how I kind of fell into it.
Oh yeah. Uh, as a child, did you always dream about maybe being in movies, or did you just want to be in the industry?
Dude, my childhood, like, no joke, was crazy, like crazy. And from a very young age was like, I cannot wait until I grow up and like can have my own life. And it wasn't that I didn't love my family, but I just didn't want to be in the rural places that they were living in. I wanted to be in the city. I had a very definitive idea. Of what I wanted to be a part of, and theater and film and dance captivated me from a really young age. And I just remember thinking like, oh, I want to be a part of that. I want to be part of the show. I wanted to be in that like alternate universe of yeah, of like making art, making films, making plays.
Oh yeah. Uh, so I got a list of all the movies you've been in. I've seen quite a few of them, to be honest. So, uh, let's talk about your first one, which was Addicted to Murder. Getting when you had to go read for that and getting chosen for that, what was your initial reaction?
I was excited. I remember auditioning for the part. I feeling like I was probably going to get it because, like I said, at that time I was already playing a vampire in this live vampire show, La Commedia del Sangue, which was like touring all around Manhattan and the five boroughs. So whenever you walk into an audition and you're already kind of working as the character that they're casting, I just feel like there's a really good chance that you're going to get it, right? Because you walk in kind of being what they're looking for. So I remember hoping, really hoping that I would get it and really liking Kevin Lindenmuth, the director, when I auditioned for him. And so I was thrilled when I got it. I was really excited.
All right. Uh, Bloodletting. You played Patty. That came out in 1997. Uh,
Yes.
Going from Addicted to Murder, doing a couple things between that to Bloodletting. What was the differences between the journey from there to there?
So working on Addicted to Murder it was very specific and it was very small in that my scenes and the cast of Addicted to Murder was very small and hyper New York. One of the things I loved about Addicted to Murder, Kevin, the director, being a New Yorker, like everything was set in the city. Like Angie, my character's apartment was the Dakota. We shot in the exteriors of the Dakota. So it was a very New York vampire film that I couldn't have felt more at home being in. And I think it was through Kevin that J.R. Bookwalter had reached out, and the Tempe crew out in Ohio had reached out to invite me to be in Bloodletting. And so I think it was Bloodletting. It must have been Bloodletting that I did like a big road trip with Scooter McCrae, Mike Gingold, and Tina Kraus. We like all piled in a car and went out. And it like, must have been the first time I had met, I'm sure I had met I probably knew Scooter, but maybe it was the first time I'd met Tina. And so it felt more like an ensemble, like road trip. And then, of course, the cast of Bloodletting and all the scenes, there was always a bunch of us in that. So it felt more like being in a horror high school than Addicted to Murder, which felt more like just sexy vampire in New York.
All right.
They were both fantastic experiences, and I loved my characters because they felt so much different and much more self-assured in who they were than I was in my regular life. Like they were kind of real bad. They wore their badassery on their sleeves, whereas I don't think that I did.
Uh, let's go forward to when you met James Edwards for the first time.
Yeah.
Did you want to go into that a little bit? Because if it wasn't for him, who I am very grateful for reaching out and all that other stuff to have you on here, I was very appreciative. So,
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's a funny thing because James and I, in the last 5 years, we've like reconnected. Like the horror family's kind of back together again. I feel like everybody's making movies again and we're all hanging out again. And I've spent a lot of time with James in the last 5 years. And one of the brilliant things about it is being with James. It's like no time has passed. Like I feel like I'm 26 again. So when we met for Bloodletting, again, it was a big cast. There was a lot going on. He was hilarious. Like he's still to this day, like if I need a deep like belly laugh, I know I can call him and he'll have me in stitches.
oh yeah,
Like in 5 minutes. Like there's nobody I've ever met who like says the things that he says in the way that he's hilarious. Like he's so funny. Like Side Effects May Vary, the J.R. Bookwalter recent movie. It's so hilarious because James wrote it. You know what I mean? So anyway, we'll probably get to that later. Um, but he's just so fun. He was funny then. I think he's funnier now. And I just was like, what a nice guy, you know what? And it was fun. It was like, yeah, yeah, shooting that movie. Yeah, it was like being in horror high school. And James was kind of like the popular, like funny kid.
oh yeah. Speaking of his movies, you've been in quite a few of them.
Hmm.
If I, I know you were in, her name was Krista,
Yes.
which me and him have talked about that extensively on the episodes he's been in. What was your takeaways from being in that film?
So I obviously shot my scene or scenes in that movie, and I'm just in the very end where it was so it was James's kind of it was his first directorial debut, and he also starred in it. It was a heavy character role. It's like a necromantic love story, as
Yes.
as as you know, and people find out who watch the film. And so I wasn't sure what I was getting into. Like I knew it was James, so I knew it would be fine, and there was no way I would say no to that. But I wasn't sure, like, could he direct? Could he like write a whole movie? Like, who knew? Like, I was just excited to be in like the surprise ending with Scooter, with JR, and like come in as the doctor. And then when I saw her name as Krista, I was like, I was so good.
Oh yeah.
It was such a great movie, and I was just like I just thought it was amazing. So I was delighted to be in it, delighted that he had offered me a part in that, and I was really glad to be a part of it, and really excited to see him expand as a director and a writer. You know.
Oh yeah. Uh, let's talk about side effects may vary. Uh, that's a different kind of movie that there's so much that goes into that, at least in my opinion, that went into that movie about like the graphics and the characters and everything like that. What would you say would be some of the fondest moments you've had on that set?
Mm. Oh gosh. So it was again, it was so much fun to be working with JR as a director for the first time in over what 20 or 25 years since we had done polymorph, and bloodletting. So it was great. Like it was wonderful to meet his wife and his kids and see like to be shot in his house. I loved so I played the doctor in Side Effects, and he was renovating his daughter's bedroom anyway. So before he finished the renovation, he turned it into a doctor's office. And the actor in me, like the first thing you do, especially when you're playing like a character role, like, like a cop or a nurse or a doctor, is you get to like, it's so much fun to like interact with your surroundings and your props. So it was so exciting to like walk into my doctor's office, and it really felt like a doctor's office, even though it was his daughter's bedroom. So that was fantastic. I also, the first night or the first day, I guess, that I arrived, that I was on set, they were shooting the opening sequence, which, if you've seen Side Effects, the very opening shot, they're testing this new vaccine, this new COVID vaccine. And so they're in this like big kind of hangar, and they shoot Dave Backmeyer up and he kind of like explodes. So I had a really good time arriving on set, but not having to work. Like I was hanging out with everybody while they were shooting that. And it just, like, I mean, in any movie theatrical situation, you make friends that you only see when you've made the movie or when you're working together. So when I came back for Side Effects, there were people that I got to see in that, like actors that I got to see and crew people that I got to see who I hadn't seen since I had been out for James's movies. So it's always like a reunion, do you know? And it's always nice because I don't, especially as a New Yorker, I'm never, I'm only in Ohio when I'm working for them, really.
Nah.
It's just nice to reunite with friends.
Oh yeah, your screen froze. I'm sorry, but
No,
we
I'm
heard
sorry.
no, but we heard everything you said though. That's cool. That so Side Effects May Vary was a very gory movie. Uh, and a different kind of take from the movies that I've seen a lot of people in, to be honest. But I want to say that whenever they cast you as a doctor, it seems like you get right into that characters. Do you draw like personal experience, or just like how do you get into those characters?
Oh, um, I that's a great question. But I draw on the experience of what I've observed, obviously, and the people that I know that are like doctors. Or in that case, a doctor. And then, it really, I mean, it's pretend, and it's not that hard to pretend once you're like wearing the lab coat, and you have somebody sitting on like walking in, and James is like waiting on the patient table. I don't know, it just happens kind of naturally, authentically. I think as an actor, where your goal lies from scene to scene. Like being a doctor, playing a doctor is really pretty easy because you can imagine like your goal is to get that patient in and out, right?
Oh yeah,
So that being like the overriding goal, then everything else just kind of like falls into place once you're comfortable with the set and the props and everything.
oh yeah. All right, let's get to Trivial, which was
Mm,
an excellent movie.
thank you.
I so you play Laurel, who
Mhm.
is the main character of the movie. Uh, was that a different kind of movie that you filmed from all the other ones? Because all the other ones is, like your characters were there to prolong a story, but this one is strictly your story. So and what would you say would be the best way to kind of go around what your experiences were?
So yeah, it's a lot, right? To know that you're in I think I was in almost every single frame, every single scene of that movie
Mm-hmm.
I was in. So like you can't really think about it. Otherwise, it would be like too much, right? So like every day, I just took every day like as it came. We shot the movie in sequence of the script, which was wonderful. So I didn't have to like jump around timeline wise. That was fantastic. Um, Again, like. the cast and crew were like amazing. I swear, it's a funny thing when you make movies because like the fun of it is like while you're making the movie, after it's like edited and comes out, that's like very much after the fact, right? So it's always for me like about the experience of making it. And everybody on that movie, every actor, everybody, all the crew, like everybody was so dedicated and awesome. It was just like fun. And again, it was like camping out. Like it was like 2.5 weeks in another world. Like we carved out our own little space. It was challenging because it was so violent. And I had a very heavy reentry into the regular world. I flew home and I lost my voice for 3 weeks.
Dang.
Couldn't speak and was really sick. And I think that, an actor friend of mine, a theater actor friend of mine said, Sasha, you might know that you're playing a role and that everything is pretend, but your body doesn't necessarily know that. So when you're like slicing and dicing and killing people, and I mean, I think it was a really intense film and it was really, yeah, it was violent and emotional. And so, yeah, it took me about a month to like kind of like work it through my body. But it was also fun. I also, power issues are something that have always fascinated by me. So it was very empowering and very cathartic to play a character who had complete power over these men, over these characters. So yeah, I won't say I didn't enjoy that because I really did.
But, uh, so talking to James, the way I perceived the film was everyone was like these people that this is happening to were the victims. You were the victim because you were doing it for a very specific reason, which I'm not going to spoil. But by the end of the movie, 100%, I thought your character was the victim.
Mm,
And the thing about it is the way you portrayed the character made me feel for her that much more at the end of the movie. So
thank,
hands down, you did awesome.
thank you.
uh,
Thank you.
uh, so the thing is with this movie, when you were doing the scenes, the violent scenes, did you have to dig in somewhere deep down to actually fulfill that, or was it just joyful fun?
Um, so it's joyful fun when what you're doing is kind of funny and you realize it. Do you know? Like so it's funny until it's not funny. And there were scenes that I shot in that really disturbed me,
Yeah,
really deeply disturbed me. Um, there were parts that required me to get emotional that I, as an actor, was able to access from different places. So, like, although I was portraying very dark things, I wasn't always entering the emotion from a dark place. Sometimes I would come to it from a vulnerable place of something very beautiful that made me emotional, and then I'd funnel that in. So because I'm a lot older now, I know how to care for myself in that. Um, but there's not you would have to be, I don't uh, you would have to be psychotic, I think, in order to do what I did in that movie and not feel the darkness of it
yeah,
and how much pain she was in, as a human
oh yeah,
being.
yeah. So your character and James's character for the better part of maybe the first 30 to 40 minutes of this movie was going toe to toe. And I mean that to me was like a jousting fight because if he scored a point, you came back and scored again. If you did, he did. Getting reading the script and knowing that you were going to be doing that, would you see anyone else being able to pull that off with you other than James or no?
Oh my God, no. No, no. There was no, yeah, no, it was only going to be him and I on that tennis court.
Oh yeah,
For sure, for sure. And I can't imagine anybody else pulling it off like he could. Do you know? I mean, other actors could have done it, but not in the signature James L. Edwards. way.
Yeah.
Um, and to be honest, I think the end of at the end of our character's relationship in that, I think that was perhaps, in a way, kind of like one of the most profound points in the film. It's certainly a turning point, but when I watch it, I feel like that might be one of the greatest scenes in the whole movie when he reaches the end. It's a really powerful scene that that affects me even when I watch it. I'm like, wow,
Oh
wow.
yeah. Oh yeah. Drew 48 is also in the movie.
Hmm.
Your interaction with him is because I've met him too. I actually met him in person here in Michigan, but humble person, down to earth guy. But toward the end of the movie, you kind of that take a step back of thinking that because of the outcome of what was happening.
Hmm.
So in the end, it was kind of like, was it a redemption mark for him, for you, or your character was doing it for love. I'll say that. I'm not going to ruin it, but there are certain characters in this movie who got what they deserve. So did you have a say in how certain things would go with certain people, or did he give you free reign on act it how you want to act it? James, that being.
Yeah, no, James pretty much gave me free reign on acting how I would want to act it. And I think due to everybody's strength in the movie, I feel like all of it was very true to, yeah, true to life, I suppose. Even though, I mean, in real life, like Drew's amazing. Like Drew is amazing. And all of the guys in the film, it was really it was really wonderful because James wrote this to be an actor's film. He wanted his hope was that everybody would really shine. Like every character would get a really rich opportunity to tell their side of the story, to have these big emotional things. Like it's really an actor's movie. Um, and I remember when Drew was doing his kind of big monologue reveal. Um, and you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, he's just so talented and amazing.
Uh, I don't know if James told you, but at the end of every year, NC-17, we all get together. There's a group of us, and we do what we call the NC-17 Awards. You won Best Actress last year. Yes. And there actually will be an award that will be sent out to you. I'm gonna send it to James, and he'll get it to you.
Thank
But
you.
there was like 10 of us that got together, and we it was unanimous. So
Thank you. Tell everybody I said thanks.
we'll do. Uh, but that just goes to show to the strength of who you are. Because at the beginning of the movie, we were thinking she's the villain. She's the villain. 30 minutes into the movie, you flipped every single one of our minds. You're the victim. And toward the end, there was quite a few people who were shocked at how it ended.
Hmm.
Uh, but do you think it could have ended any other way?
I really like to think it could have, to be honest with you. And yeah, I do think it could have. And I thought it was the hardest, harshest possible ending, but given the subject matter, I know, I guess maybe it did have to end like that. I like to think, though, that somehow it didn't.
Uh, so outside of being in movies, you've produced some. Do you ever want to be behind the camera directing?
Mm. So, I write and direct a podcast. I do live events very much in which I'm pretty much like the director of, in terms of directing a film, no. I don't have any desire to do that only because I'm not trained well enough. Do you know what I mean? And like to be honest with you, I mean, I've been a writer for the last 15 years. And so getting back into movies has been wonderful. It's not my first line of work. So I feel like there would probably always be someone more qualified than me to direct something. But writing, that's a different story. Producing, that's a different story. So yeah, so maybe. I don't
Uh,
know. But I like
uh,
writing.
uh, I always try to do a little bit of research on celebrities or guests who are going to be on the show. So, your bio says you got a BA in literature and religion at from Hunter College. Uh, with that, going into what you do now, how profound of an impact does that have with you?
Oh gosh. Well, what's funny about I went to college. I quit acting in my late 20s and I went to college then because I had never, I went from high school straight into New York City to be an actor. And so I felt a real intellectual deficit with my friends. And so it was interesting going to college as a 29-year-old because I found everything really interesting. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to pick what to major in? And so I just wound up following my heart as best I could. And so it was interesting to do literature and comparative religion, not knowing at that point that I would wind up publishing like dozens of books on metaphysics, tarot, the occult, essentially combining literature and religion, or religion and spirituality, right? A cross-cultural spirituality. Yeah, so I think it's just I've always tried to follow what sparkles for me, what's interesting for me. And then things have a funny way of just winding up very synchronistic or the path unfolds. And after the fact, everything seems to make sense.
Yeah. Uh, I don't want to go too much more into what I found because that's really what I found. I'm an honest person, so but with I see that you and James have like a brother sister relationship. So I'm sure if there's any project you're working on, you ask him, I'm sure he's going to do it, and vice
Yeah.
versa. Uh, in saying that, is there certain actors out there you might want to work with you haven't worked with yet?
Oh gosh. I've never even thought about that. Uh, Actually, an actor I've always wanted to work with, I am going to be working with in this year, this coming year in 2025. I'm playing a really fun role. I'm playing an 80s mother in a movie called Victim No More. And Catherine Mary Stewart, one of my like favorite actors, is in the film too. So I'm really excited. She and I are actually friends, but I'm excited to officially be in a movie with her because she's just such a baddie. She's so cool. So that is a dream come true. Um, there were filmmakers I was dying to work with who finally invited me into one of their films last year. I can't say anything about it yet, but it's coming out in 2025. I'm really excited about. So let me think of someone, I would love to work. I would love to work with one of these new like top tier female directors, like of the substance. Like it's been such an incredible year for female body horror, from the substance to Night Bitch to Baby Girl. Like I've never felt so seen by Hollywood before. So, oh gosh, I would love to work with any of those directors. That would be unbelievable.
Uh, the Substance was a great movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
I saw it like 3 times already. That was a great movie.
I saw that opening weekend with my sister, and we didn't know anything about it except it was body horror and Demi Moore was in it. It was like being at a rock concert by the end of the film. Like we were screaming at the screen, but we couldn't believe it was so fabulous and so true to what it feels like, to be in a female body. Ah, so good.
We got about 10 minutes left. Is there anything, I always ask everybody this, is there anything for up and coming actors or people who want to get into the business, the industry? Is there anything you can say to them for like words of encouragement?
Yeah, just go for it with your heart and soul and don't feel like you like be inspired by people, but like forge your own path And I think something that something I saw another actor say recently, which was like, you don't have to be the star. You just have to work. So keep working. Like do what you can to keep working and keep putting one foot in front of the other and have fun. And if it's not fun anymore, then stop doing it and find something else that is fun. But like if those seeds of desire are inside of you, they're in there for a reason. So like do it. This is it. This is your chance. This is your one go around in this lifetime. So go for it.
All right. One more question on trivial, and then we'll go to a couple more questions. Weapon of choice.
Oh.
That like would that be your weapon of choice, or was there
Weapon of
something that?
choice. I loved that sledgehammer. I loved the sledgehammer. I loved it too, not only because it was really powerful, but it also, I got to keep a bit of distance from the body. So I think, yeah, I think in any situation where I'm physically altercating with someone, I'm going to always want to keep my distance. I won't want to be very too close to their body. That way I'm safe as I'm bludgeoning them to death.
Works. uh, so you mentioned tarot, and I know that that's something you're into. So, what would you say would be like some good takeaways from doing tarot and stuff like that?
One of the interesting things about reading tarot cards, or even when, and I teach tarot workshops all over the world, and even teaching is I didn't realize how similar it was to acting in that in a movie or on in a in a play, you memorize your lines, but then you show up and you kind of forget that you know them and you just really root yourself in the moment. It's the same thing that happens when you teach, and especially like I find myself, I often teach in front of like large groups of hundreds of people, and it can be scary, and so I know. Same thing, like I know what I'm teaching. I have to kind of forget about it and then root into the moment and go with what the situation calls for, which is the same thing that happens in film. Um, and yeah, yeah. So it's interesting. And then with every book that I write, it's kind of like a mini movie in itself, and that there's some question I'm trying to answer or something that I'm trying to figure out. And so I always leave the project different than when I came into it. And the same is true for movies as well. So I think that, I guess what I'm trying to say is that whatever artistic process that you're involved in, really it's kind of the same base stuff that just comes out in different ways.
All right. That's a perfect answer. Uh, so we got about 5 minutes left. Where's the with the new year coming and everything? Do you got a lot of projects coming out, or because I know you can't talk about everything because of you know the
I
rules and
do.
regulations.
Yes, yes. Yeah, there's a few things I can talk about. So actually, I just launched season 2 of my podcast, which is a podcast called Ghost Stories by the Fire. So it's totally in the realm of horror. I do live ghost story crowd sharing events where people come up and tell me their ghost stories. So season 2 of Ghost Stories by the Fire, Sasha Graham's Ghost Stories by the Fire, just actually launched today. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can get that. Um, I've got so I'll be shooting a movie. I've got a movie. Yeah, I can't say what any of those are, though. I'm not allowed to say that. I'm doing a lot of tarot teaching. I'll be at a speculative fiction conference this July in the Bay Area of San Francisco as a guest of honor. I'll be teaching at the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. I'll be teaching at the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, not only at the end of February, but then again for 5 days in July as well. And I've got a bunch of books and decks coming out. So the newest one being The Artist's Guide to Tarot, which is being released at the end of February, or at the end of this month. So sashagram.com is my website. Everything is there. If anybody is
That
interested.
led right into my next question: is all your social medias. If you want to plug them, feel free.
Yeah. Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Sasha Tarot Diva. My website is sashagram.com. I think on Facebook, I'm Sasha Graham 1. Not quite sure. Um, Social media feels like a dumpster fire right now anyway. Like I don't know who's doing what where. It's like insane. But go to sashagraham.com and sign up for my newsletter. You'll always find out what I'm doing, where I'll be at, and where we can connect.
All right. Uh, let's play one game real quick. I'm gonna name three things. First thing comes to your mind. I
Okay,
ain't done this in a while, so uh, horror
love it.
directors.
Spielberg.
All right, and life.
Awesome.
Awesome. That perfect way to end the show. uh, I want to thank you for coming on, and like I tell everybody, once you're a guest on NC-17, you always have a home here. You want to come on here and say, "Hey, you got a booger in your nose," you can do it.
You. Thank you so much. And thank you for the NC-17 award. That is
Oh, you're
really
most
cool.
welcome. That actually will be going out by the middle of next month. So once it's here, I'm gonna send it to James and he'll get it to you.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
But loved trivia, and I look forward to everything you're going to be putting out this year. So I'll probably will have a lot of reading to do.
Okay. I tend to be loquacious. It's true. Thank you.
You're welcome. Until next time, everybody. This has been NC-17. Thank you, Sasha Graham. And until next time, stay NC-17.